African American parents and child advocates across the country sound the alarm at the crisis facing young African American males. As pundits and political operatives attempt to limit problems brought on by irresponsible parenting and pop culture. Today, millions of African American males are being lost daily to unemployment, incarceration, gangster influence, drugs, and the graveyard. As a matter of fact, young African American males are attracted to the bad boy image. However, many people wonder if the problem is hopeless. Joining me today is Dr. Daryl Green, who has been noted and quoted in Ebony Magazine, BET, and USA Today. Dr. Daryl Green has also authored this book, A Call to Destiny: How to Create Effective Ways to Assist African American Males in America. Welcome, Dr. Green. It's good to have you again.
Thank you, Ryan. I am so excited. I'm very passionate about young people. And I hope today that we can just get down to business, looking at some solutions. There are a lot of problems. And to make it very simple, I know we've been called Negroes, colored, African Americans. Let's just keep it simple, blacks. That's what I grew up with. Let's just keep it simple, keep it real, as they say. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Okay, Dr. Green, it's for obvious reasons that you are very passionate about this subject and trying to help African American males in today's world. Obviously, you are a professor, a father, and this is something very close to your heart, and as an educator. But why do you place emphasis on African American males, and don't you think that boys in general are having a lot of problems in our nation today?
Well, Ryan, you asked a very good question. I think for me, just recently, I had to attend a funeral of a young man in his prime of his life, gotten shot. And in the past year, I've gone to at least 2 or 3 different funerals. One of them is actually a relative at my church, not a relative, but a close friend. And in those situations, you see decision making that's taking place, and I look at it from the standpoint of culture. And I think as you look as a country, as you look at the least of these, you can easily determine where the future of America is coming. And certainly black males, if you look at most of the statistics in terms of graduation rates, employment, incarceration rates, they lead every negative category. So I think we can rewrite the picture. My main focus is on how to help leaders build, and I think you have to start with that. I think in looking at African American males, I think you can make a case that we can right that ship, then we can better our country in order to be competitive. So my heart goes out to millions of parents that have had to deal with situations that face, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, that males in general are struggling just because we talk about culture. The culture of underachievement plagues our country, and the young ladies are excelling. We see young men are willing to take the back seat, and again, black African American parents are struggling with what they do with their kids. What I think is very unique, you take a very affluent African American or black family, you take the poorest in that community, and they when it turns to dealing with their sons, they still have the same sort of issues in terms of culture, trying to dumb down, being excellence, being associated with being white. All those negative things have a detrimental impact on them, and that's why I'm trying to work on a video series on saving our sons and trying to beat this underachievement that occurs in some African American black families.
So part of this is a lot to do with an identity crisis. I mean, you're obviously saying you have your educated, black family, and then you have your more poor, a less educated black family.
Yeah. Well, I think in this situation, I think in our country, they're in the same dilemma. We have, don't want to go back to history, but just 200 years of slavery. There are some things that they have to deal with back in terms of images, black images being negative. Back in the 80s and 90s, President Ronald Reagan did a massive campaign against the war on drugs, and the media kind of sensationalized that with most of the negative things in terms of the pimps, the prostitutes, the drugs, was
all go back to black.
I'll go back to that black term.
Idea of the black, right.
And one of the things, there's a lady, her name is Michelle Alexandria, and she wrote the book, the New Jim Crow, and she's from Ohio State, and she actually chronologizes the U.S. Criminal system and how it has become the new Jim Crow, and because you look at those situations, those individuals can't vote. In most cases, if you have a criminal record, you can't get a good job.
You can't do anything, basically.
And that kind of leads me into a stat I'll share with you right now. In terms of black males, and it comes from the American Community Survey. They said a black male born in 1991 has a 29% chance of spending time in jail at some point in his life. They says that nearly 1 in 3 African-American males aged 20 to 29 are under some form of criminal justice supervision. 1 out of 9 African-American males will be incarcerated between the ages of 20 and 34. Black males ages 30 to 34 have the highest incarceration rate of any race ethnicity. And we start talking about college. There are more black males right now in prison than are enrolled in college and universities.
Interesting.
And so,
so is it fair to say that this is, my next question was, is this the state of African Americans right now? These percentages of incarcerations versus, those that are enrolled in college, and is this why we should be concerned? Because this is really, this seems to be a very issue. I mean, and America's a pretty big country, so I mean, if we're looking across the board, and the numbers are higher in prison than they are in college, that doesn't look really good for anybody.
Yeah, I think the dynamics, again, we don't stereotype any black segments or people in the community, but I do think it's something that we need to be aware of. If you look at high school rates, that only 50% of black males graduate from high school, looking at those things, I think we should be concerned, because most people say, we live in the age of Obama. President Barack Obama, he's a president, very articulate, has a pedigree that's very outstanding, has done great things. And so people say, well, I don't think we need to deal with that problem with African-American males. But I think there is a problem that we need to face, because I think it will impact the culture. Go ahead.
Can I understand? So what you're trying to say is that now that we have a black president in office, that's it? We should just not worry anymore about the future of our black males and females, or our African American people.
I think so. I think.
So should we give up?
I think no. We still need.
That's
to.
That's
what some people think, that we've made it, we've overcome, and even Professor Dr. Alexandria, she talks about the civil rights movement, that this whole thing about being in incarceration. Not being able wanting to deal with it. One of the co-authors of the book, Reggie Jenkins, I just met with him the other day, and he was talking about the casualties of war. That in war, like going into Iraq, we know that we're going to have some casualties that you face. Yeah. And when people go into war, some people don't want to face it. And as we look at the problem, the condition in terms of African American males, black males, there's a war going on in terms of the media, and just those culture influences that shape their mindset. That it's for me to become excellent, I have to associate that with being a gangster, criminology, or even drug related, something that's negative. And I think one of the things that we stem from, and we'll hopefully get to that, is that in most cases we go back, and Reggie Jenkins, one of the things that he does, he has a unique academy. He's a co-founder of that particular organization that helps elementary, middle school, and high school students learn how to become men. And that's really what we find, that a lot of young guys are really angry. Matter of fact, we were sitting in a workshop together, and a young man saying that he was just so angry because his dad was not in the home, his mother was constantly belittling him. And in those situations, of course, because go back to slavery times, there was the absence of a home, a male in the house, and we're looking at right now, you have a lot of black homes that don't that have that only have a
mother.
mother, a strong mother. Mother cares, but that's something to be said about having a man in the house. In the past, we've had an uncle. The community would surround that young man and give him love. And now in the case where we've just gotten so busy, I'm doing my own thing. I don't have time to deal with the young man. And so these young men are trying to become men on their own.
So you're saying, so it seems to be on a national level. You're basically saying people have spread out into their own idea of a life. I'm busy with this, I'm busy with that, I don't have time. And you say in the past, we had the uncle, the family, the community, as they say, it takes a village to raise a child. So, what should they be doing on their own merits? Should they go back into these surrounding communities to help influence and put these kids through college, see them grow, see them become successful?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think it starts even at the very early age of preschool and kindergarten, allowing those individuals, allowing kids in general. Statistics that I've seen says that over 90% of schools are teachers are primarily women. When you look at African American black teachers, you're talking about 6%. When you're talking about African American or black teachers, you're only talking about 1%. So there's no role model that's there taking place. I know if you can think about the number of times you've had a black professor, a black teacher, maybe besides the PE teacher, has been very limited. And I think those things.
I'm actually thinking of it right now.
I think those things make a difference.
They
but
do.
I mentioned at the kindergarten level, if we just had individuals that would just go to the schools and maybe speak to the students maybe once a month, because a child needs to have a person in their life
very familiar with,
but being consistent, seeing that individual. And one of the things that we did, my wife's side of the family, that we started a Young Brothers Reading Institute, where we were all across the country, and we realized that some of the boys had problems with reading and with school, and so we had a conference call once a month where we'd have one of the family members speak to the student, and we'd read a book and build together. But those kind of things that you can build together, and if you can, I think you can reach a kid maybe one by one, maybe it's picking one kid and working with them. At our church, we have we had a Christian Social Academy where we would have young men. We would teach them how to treat a young lady, how to eat. And those things, again, we take for granted. How to use the restroom. Some of the young men don't know the proper way, that you need to let the seat down, that you need to respect the young lady. Very, very simple things on how do you speak. I'm a youth advisor at my church, and I had witnessed a young man. He was trying to talk to a young lady. I think he liked the young lady, and he kept punching the young lady because in his mindset of what he's seen on TV, they had the Chris Brown situation.
Right.
They feel in order to make a relationship that a woman is the same thing as a man, because they're watching those shows and they're saying, hey, they can take it just like a man.
But don't women also want to be, I'm not justifying, but
isn't
it also mentality that women want to be treated and the same, and they want the rights just the same and the same pay? It just goes round.
Well, that's the dynamics that we live in a society with multiple cultures. It takes that, but I think some of that is just having the feedback, and what we try to do, at least at my church, and I think Reggie, we try to do is having a dialogue. And one of the things that I encourage in certain situations, that young men, pretty much like if you're in a school, I've seen this happen, like in middle school, young men are really trying to understand. And actually, what happens to them in school, you think about kindergarten, is creative, free flowing. You can do everything. You can do pretty much anything you need to do within a structure. But as soon as you get into elementary school and getting into middle school, things become more structured, and kids become very lax. And you take a young man is failing in school. They know all the statistics in the NFL about university football, basketball, and they can quote Lil Wayne or any of those other rappers, but they're failing in school. Okay. So my situation, the kids aren't dumb.
You brought up sports.
Yes.
I'm going to jump to the sports, since we'll get back, but I want to jump to sports. You brought up sports and music and
Yeah.
rapping and lyrics.
Yeah.
And we've seen it
Yes.
in the African American male population. How do high school sports, football, basketball especially, use African American males while providing them very little in return? Like, most of our basketball athletes by this point are African American or
Yes.
African American
Yeah.
ancestry,
Yes.
and here we are, we're proud of them, we're happy for them, but is that enough? They're getting paid a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, is money enough?
Well, no, it's not enough. I think if you go into, and one of the things I do, I have spoken in elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, and I ask the students, I say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Most of the black males, I want to be a football player, I want to be a basketball player. It goes back to stereotypes of being on TV. And so in some cases you might be saying, because even for some individual kids, they grow up, males, they grow up and their parents are brainwashed. And maybe they don't stay with their mother, and they want to stay with their father. And so the only love they get is when they're on the football field, and they're scoring that touchdown or dunking that goal. And so there's a response, hey, that's the only way I'm gonna get attention. And so they migrate to those things. And it's because you think about football, you know, it's a pretty low cost sport in terms of how to understand the game, basketball, and so that's where they gravitate to. But we've seen, like you see Tiger Woods, those individuals, African Americans, are given those opportunities, they can excel in those sports. But a lot of times their dreams are very limited, and it goes back to, you know, to having the right kind of mentors that say, hey, you can be everything you can be. You know, you can be the scientist, you can be the engineer, you can be that great global communicator like Riyam.
I try.
If you want to. I just think we limit their dreams. I think what we have to do is, you know, the grandfathers who retired, who left the organizations, who have raised their kids, they could go back into the schools. If they could go back and just pick a young man in their church or the community or in their synagogues, and just work with them. Just one. If we could.
So does religion play an important part? I mean, let's, you know,
for
religious mentoring through, I would say, sports or any other activities, or even music.
Well, for me, I guess that's a great question. For me, you have to teach values. You know, because values have to be taught. You know, the good, right and wrong. I think the church, for my part, is an institution that's set up that have all the ingredients to make those work. But a lot of times, a lot of the churches are dealing with inner fighting, a lot of politics,
They're not
not focused. But
yeah.
you know, to be honest, with churches, you have, you know, some of the community organizations. They're focused on how much money can we get to have all these kids in these programs. But I think I've looked at certain examples. You have the 100 Black Men of Knoxville, the 100 Black Men just in general. What I like about them is that they take those individuals, some of those kids, and they work all the way up and see them graduate. I think that's the commitment that you got to have.
Yeah.
Coming in and out sometimes doesn't work as well.
So we could still encourage African American males to play basketball and baseball. But we need to encourage them to finish a college degree and to help others.
It's all about having options. You know, if you want to excel in sports, have a B plan, have some kind of degree behind
So we're
it.
talking about helping African American males excel in other areas other than sports and rapping and music and being a celebrity.
And not to say there's anything wrong with that. I mean, if you're hard as that, but I'm just saying, for most of the young black males that we deal with, black males, their dreams are so limited.
Exactly. Yeah. But what about this one person?
Okay.
We're living in a current state right now where we actually have an African American president.
Yes.
Do you think President Barack Obama has helped or hurt the conditions of young black boys in America?
Oh, that's a great question. And one of the things I have to always sit back.
Because he himself said during his first, his first winning speech, and I remember this back in 2000. He said, "Young African American males have more to look forward to than being a basketball player, a football player, a rapper, and so on and so forth."
Yes. Again, I'll just take it to you like that. I'm a public employee, so I'll put it to you like this. I think for those individuals that have the ability, I think he is a inspiration to young African American males, and to those that that may see him as the inception, then it could be a harm to those particular communities. I think you just have to wait. From my vantage point, you just can't put all your hope on one man.
He's the beginning.
He is the beginning.
I think when it comes
he
to
proved,
this,
he proved it could be done. But I just think and President Barack Obama said so many times that at the local level, you got to come up with you have to look at your mentors,
Absolutely.
your mom, your dad,
Absolutely.
your uncle, because they can reach and touch those individuals.
And that is someone whose father was absent from his life, and who was very much brought up by his mother. His grandmother has a sister and is now living in the White House with his wife and mother-in-law lived in and is a father of 2 daughters. So I mean, he is somebody that is
and you
that absent of that uncle or that father figure.
Well, you mentioned something I think is very deep. And I was sitting here and I was working on my doctorate degree. Very affluent men. We were sitting around. They were talking about again. Wasn't a lot of African Americans in Rome, but they talked about their fathers. Mm-hmm. A lot of them had been very successful. Their father was not in the home. Mm-hmm. The father was absent, or their father was abusive. And in that void where the father was not perfect, you had those men excel. So if you look in the prisons, you look at dropouts, most of those situations can be stemmed to either the ineffectiveness of the father in the home or the lack of father in the home. And so my thing is, in myself, I grew up, my biological father was not in the home. I did have a father that was in the home. He loved me. Didn't show it because back then, he's old school. He wasn't going to show you he loved him.
Make a man out of you. No emotion.
Yeah, no emotion. But the things that he did. And I think in any case, I think if a young male sees a grown man in a very healthy way, build a relationship with them in the confines of an institution, I think it can work if they put it together. I think we just live in a world where you have to be careful when doing a lot of one-on-one stuff because we live in that kind of situation. But in the confines of a community, organization, confines, making those things work, I think it's because young men want to learn how to be grown men. They want to be adults, but they don't have. They don't have the ingredients. So they have a lot of anger. They go to school with a lot of anger.
So do you think young Black African Americans are justified in being angry, as we can sometimes see? I mean,
you can. Let's put it this way. You can understand anger. I mean, as and the Bible talks about. Get angry and sin
everyone has a story.
Yeah. So anger itself is not bad. I mean, the anger can stimulate change. I think it's good, but just a lot of times, a lot of young men don't know how to cope with that, and so they act out. They're trying to get attention, and for me, once they get into high school, it's very hard to change a young man's mind.
But do you think this has a lot to do with racial profiling? Do you think someone's anger? As humans, we get angry at people because I know I do. If somebody racially profiles me, I get very upset. Do you think
profiling can make you angry? But I just think at the core of it, I think you have to look a little bit deeper than
we probably should turn back around and prove the opposite of our racial profiling.
Yeah, I think that this whole thing with they had Louis Gates had a situation several years ago with the police where he was from, and one of the things I talked about is. What worked for Dr. Gates, for most young men, if they act out in their homes, they're going to go to jail. And so we have to be very careful in terms of how we teach our young men how to survive. We talk about how to survive a stop by police. And I really respect the police because they do a good job of protecting us. But I just think there's a lot of anger going on. And a lot of that, there's a gentleman at Dr. Ron Brown. He deals with a lot of anger and talks to young men. I think sometimes we have to be at a point that we have our young people take them. They need to go talk to somebody. I don't advocate a lot of medicine because in the old days, our parents, you act up, there was something that went on your rear. And a lot of times we
can't do that anymore. So that's a problem. I mean, that's
problematic.
Do that, but we can prescribe our kids, take our kids and have, so much drugs prescribed, which is wrong on many levels, on every level.
Well, to be honest with you, there's still a segment of society they still find, you know, matter of fact, my dad said, you know, I'm going to teach you right, and if I'm not going to teach you right, then you have to leave. Police have to get me because I'm going to be the owner of my household. So you still have people that say, you know what, I'm going to raise my son, I'm going to raise my daughter to be respectful.
Right.
And so they don't care about the law. They'll go to jail because they're convicted of that.
Right.
Not talking about killing the kids. I'm talking about abusing the kids.
But you can't even spank your kids these days, and they teach kids this.
Yeah, yeah. I had relatives call the police on their parents, and they wouldn't have been in our household too long.
Oh my goodness.
But again, we live in we have to understand the culture that we live in.
So what can the educational system do, you know, for our African American males? I mean, is it damaging them? I mean, what?
Well, I think one of the things I think we as a country we need to decide, do we want to be a nation of excellence or not? And I think we need to put the time in. If you look in some of the schools, a lot of schools, you may see in the honors area, you may have 1 or 2% African Americans, but you go into the special education, there may be 60 or 70% of them in there. So we need to, you know, are those students really special education? Are they having angry issues? Let's deal with that.
Are we also looking at the demographic, the geography, the setting, and how many resources are available for certain groups of people? Because let's be obvious, people are lumped in certain geographic settings just because. I mean,
I mean, it's not to take away.
Just tell the truth.
Yeah, it's not to take away the fact that racism is still different. But my thing is more empowering the parents, the administrators. What can you do? One of the things is you need to hire more teachers of diverse backgrounds. You need to bring more professionals into the area.
My next question is going into that. You know, so you know, part of this interview is to focus on how we're going to help the parents, the educators, other advocates in the community. Okay, so I want you to talk to me a little bit on some of the solutions that you think that people, you know, could approach, you know, these issues. Starting with, we're going to start with with African American males, or as you'd like to say, black males. Let's start with elementary school, K-5. K-5 to the 5th grade.
Yeah. One of the things, there's a book, Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, by Kwanzaa Kajufo, and he advocates, you know, going into the education system, you know, having role models. I think having role models, having saying, this is my child, I'm going to make sure there's at least 1 or 2 men in his life that's positive, and making sure making sure that happens. I think that's critical. Also, supporting the education is very important. And one of the things I advocate, and this is to the parents, cut the radio off, cut the cell phone off. Don't even give them a cell phone.
No one needs a cell phone at this age.
The games, cut all that stuff off. Let's focus on education. And if you look at other ethnic groups, they're being old school. I mean, they're being very tough because educating is very important. In a lot of our cases, something goes back to maybe go to actual slavery, but we equate, in some communities, giving our kids lots of stuff, equating of really helping them out.
But people, I could see, you know, we all grow up wanting to give our kids
better than we,
but I could see your point with that. Yeah. So moving on, if this is happening from kindergarten to 5th grade, I don't even know what happens, you know, above that. But now we're moving on to middle school, a very crucial point in any child's life, 6th to 8th grade.
I agree.
What would be a solution?
Kajufo, again, Dr. Kajufo, he mentioned that that's a very critical age for males because you're trying to identify, trying to separate you from your parents, your networks. One of the things that I've seen it done even for our kids, at least for our younger son, is at that point, I think putting your kid in a smaller environment. We put our smaller son in private school, 32 kids.
Nice.
I had a relative put her son in a charter school. There are individuals
magnet schools are
magnet
popping
schools,
up a lot.
putting them in situations where they can have time to develop. They don't have a whole lot of drama circling them because there's a stereotype. Hey, they're trying to identify with the NFL, with the superstars, what they're doing. So so one of the things I've seen even my son not have the homework done and not turn it in. And so that's because he didn't want to be associated at the time with excellence. And I think that's important. But putting your son in a situation, in a smaller classroom, even I'd say same-sex males, so they don't have to have a lot of drama trying to show how masculine they are.
In front of the females.
So that I think is, I mean, I'm an advocate for that. Put them in small environments, and again, give them whatever resources they need in terms of
the necessities.
They
don't need everything. They don't need everything.
Yeah. What I meant by tutoring, any extra tutoring, and bringing in speakers so that they can identify people at their age that's doing well. I think it's a good thing to have.
Moving on, then we get to high school. Now that makes or breaks a kid, any kid.
High school is very tough. Again, you have organizations. There's Jack and Jill of America. Some individuals can involve with. Again, 100 Black Men. There are Men of Tomorrow organization that's in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. They've done an excellent job. And so putting them in organizations that emphasize excellence in terms of academics, and then having the sports.
So prepping them for college, basically.
Prepping them in college. And matter of fact, I would argue that having young men and young females take the ACT in 6th grade, 5th grade. Starting early, so they're prepared for standardized tests. Involving them in Sylvian, Learning Center, or any other places that will help them build. But high school is very tough, but you have to. One of the things that I've seen in terms of being in high school, being an active parent, is that was one study I remember seeing. If your child is active in one organization, then the chance of them graduating is great. So having at least so that's why I totally don't believe in just totally cutting your kid off from sports, because if that's the one thing they're doing, maybe that'd be the one thing.
But that's better than playing video games.
That's better than playing video games.
Texting on your phone.
I agree.
What about college and trade schools?
College and trade, again, I think at high school is a very critical point. Talking to the counselors, and a lot of times you have counselors say, "Well, your grades are bad. You can't be an engineer.
Well,
you can't be a
scientist."
Have
how many students per as well.
So I think starting with the counselor, sitting down, we're talking to them. What do my son needs to do to graduate, and being there, being on point with them. And one of the things I think about summer school is that I had got to a point, our older son was going to summer school for a couple of years. Figured the point that that doesn't cause them any grief. So making the students, looking at if they had to figure out to earn some kind of points, credits, make sure that they take some online classes, do these things in school, so that the parents are not killing themselves trying to get people to summer school. But also talking to the counselors, preparing them, taking some college preparation classes to prepare them, and again, mentoring is very important. But at that point, circling themselves around outstanding. In Knoxville, there's a Black Achievers that you have a mentoring group that are doing outstanding. That's like Knoxville chapter of Jack and Jill. You have a peer group. So at that point, they don't want to be associated with the parents, so it becomes a bigger impact. And military is certainly an option for those individuals, especially for those that need discipline.
So once we're done with college and trade school, then you have your 23-year-old, 24-year-old. What do we continue? Do we stop, or how do we continue?
Well, no, I think that at some point, I think you have to sit down with your child, and we've had to deal with that in terms of making those things happen. You have to sit down and talk to them. What are your ambitions? From the time they graduate from high school until when they're getting out of college, 22, 23, they need to have a game plan. So I think if they come home, cool, but you have to have limits. You're not going to be watching TV all night, playing those videos, and most parents can attest to that, and do all those things. And I call it faking a job search. You put 4 or 5 resumes online, and you sit back and say you've done it. No, you need to go beat the street. You need to go you can have your kid volunteer and fake like he has a job until he becomes a job.
Last couple of questions.
Okay.
We are running out of time, but real quickly. So what are some good resources for parents, to have to assist their sons? We talked about the schools. Certain sports. I would say religious institutions. A lot of churches do.
Sure.
A lot of
I would say
sports-related activities.
I would say if you go back to historic again, Michelle Alexander talks about the new Jim Crow. Kind of understand the perspective that you're dealing with. Dr. Kajufo has a lot of books out about that age group between elementary, middle school, and high school. And you have organizations like the 100 Black Men, Jack and Jill, Jack and Jill of America. You have Unique Academy.
Okay.
Looking at local community organizations have set up organizations to deal with these issues.
Right.
Supporting those, I think, are very important. And getting those professionals who are engaged, who are young, and also those that are retired, lighting the fire in them and say, won't you give back to those kids, because you were in those communities, you were in those areas, and that's one of the things that we have to deal with.
I'm tired.
I'm tired. I don't want to do anything more. Yeah, I understand that.
So to benefit everyone from this interview, how can people contact you?
Okay. Are we in?
Because we're not. This is a topic that can go on and on and on. How can people contact you?
I'm very committed to this problem of helping young Black males achieve overall, and all kids in general. I'm an advocate for that. They can go to my website, www.darylgreen.org. They can hit me on Facebook. I have a Twitter account.
Okay.
They can contact me, and because we're all about making a difference. And if anything that we can do to help you, we're willing to do that.
And where can we find your book, A Call to Destiny, How to Create Effective Ways to Assist Black Boys in America?
A Call to Destiny can be found on Amazon.com and most retail outlets at your local area in your local community.
I want to thank you so much again.
I'm so
for
excited.
giving me the opportunity.
I'm so excited. I'm ready to go. Let's go march.
Let's go march.
I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you.